Y'all ready for this? Saiyan MGTOW here with over 9,000 opinions. Welcome to the video. Stand up for yourself. You know, I wish MGTOW didn't exist. But the reason it does exist is because an unknown number of men have decided to stand up for ourselves. We saw the meat grinder of marriage in the courts, and we are just like, if I don't stand up for myself, I'll be willingly leading myself to the slaughter. Now yes, I'm being a bit extreme, but my point remains. MGTOW is about standing up for yourself and saying, you know what, I'm not going to willingly go along with this. I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world. I'm going to put my foot down and unapologetically state, I'll never get married. I'm aware of hypergamy. Or, I will not cohabitate in states where common law marriage is a thing, etc. Well, what about in other aspects of life? Should we stand up for ourselves there too? Yes. Now, standing up for others is a great thing too, but don't forget to stand up for yourself. Even if the media says something else, even if a professional says something else, even if the government says something else, if you feel the need to stand up and say, I object, then do it. Now, you might be wondering, what is this video about exactly? This video is about standing up against racism directed at whites. Now, before I continue, I'll state that I don't like the term white person. I think it's kind of meaningless. Like, I'm 67% British and Irish. I'm 17% French and German. I'm 7% Nordic. But I'm also 0.02% Sub-Saharan African. So I have African DNA. How about if someone has 10% African DNA? Would they still be white? The best way, if they were 80% English, the best way to shut down the race debate is to say race doesn't exist. Because it doesn't. There is no such thing as white and black. Ask anyone how many races there are, and everyone will tell you a different number. If you think there is only one race that accounts for all of the African tribes besides the human race, you're a moron. Having said that, there are certain ethnic ancestral realities that exist. It is very easy to point out which person in a group is 80% or more traditional African descendant, and which person is 80% or more traditional European descendant, especially if everyone else in the group is Vietnamese. Having said that, I'll use these terms for my story because it makes things easier and there is a certain reality. Reality. So I was at work today and we had sexual harassment training. And if you have been paying attention the past 5 years, then you know exactly what was taught in this course. But 4 things still shocked me and basically forced my hand to make a video today. Number 1, the trainer said that if a coworker overhears you talking about anything sexual, even if you're talking to someone else, and the other person feels harassed, then you have sexually harassed that person. Now, this is absurd, but in extreme cases, I would agree with this. Like, if you are giving an extremely graphic play-by-play of a grimy porn, for 25 minutes, I think that would be harassment and disallowed from the workplace. But let's say you mention how big an actress's breasts are from this movie you watched last night, and then you go right back to talking about the CGI action. I mean, come on, grow up if you think that's sexual harassment. The second thing that shocked me made me laugh. More like made me laugh. Was that after she said you can't discriminate on hiring based on race, gender, orientation, etc., I raised my hand and said, what if you're a modeling agency and you want to do a campaign for makeup or something and you want a black woman? Isn't that discrimination? Now, I forget the words she used, but she said if it's necessary for the job, then it's okay. And I agree. Then she and this other girl doing the training were talking about, unless someone identifies as a woman, then you can't discriminate. Then I was like, okay, so if I identified as a black woman and went to get the makeup job, would they have to hire me? And the trainer was like, no, but they would have to interview you. And I pretty much just lolled. The third thing that I found surprising was that she actually said asking someone out on a date at work was okay and not harassment, so that's good. But she said if you do it repeatedly and they're not interested, then it can be. And I agree with that. But anyways, this video is not about sexual harassment very much. This video is about ethnicity/race and standing up for yourself. The fourth and final shocking part of this training started when I heard the word microaggression, of which she gave 2 examples. Number 1, if your black coworker usually has their hair down or a wig or something, and then one day they are wearing it up and out and it's big, and you say, are you really going to the meeting with your hair like that? That's a microaggression because it's a comment about their race, apparently. Second example of microaggression. If you tell someone who isn't white, oh wow, your English is great, then that's a microaggression because the historical racism and the power structures, blah blah, something something, you know the drill. So, okay, whatever. I was not gonna argue on those 2 things because yeah, you can say boneheaded things to people about their race or origin, and you should be called out for that, and you should be reminded not to talk like that and to be respectful at work. But did you make those comments necessarily because of race? Who knows? I could still argue these points, but I'd rather argue the slam dunks. So I immediately raised my hand and said, is it possible to commit a microaggression against a white person? My trainer froze. She thought for a moment and shook her head. I can't think of an example of that. That doesn't happen. Or, I never heard of that. Something like that is what she said. She asked me to give an example, like she can't even comprehend it. So I said, well, when I was younger and playing soccer and we wore white t-shirts with logos on them, my teammates and coaches even would say, that's a nice tattoo you got there. Because my skin and the shirt were so close in color that it looked like I wasn't wearing a shirt and just had the shirt logo tattooed on my chest. Now, for the record, I usually laughed at these jokes and I don't think they are microaggressions or harmful. I think the term microaggression is a microaggression. But anyways, these comments were about my race. So the trainer responded by saying she didn't understand, and then she asked if I was the only Caucasian person on the team. I said no, why does that matter? Then I said, oh, okay, so if you have more than one black person at your workplace, then it's open season for racial jokes? Not that I want that, I don't. I was just playing devil's advocate. She said no, it's about being a minority. At this point, I should have remembered that men are a minority on Earth. That straight white males are a minority on Earth. I thought about asking her about the future when white people in Portland are minorities, but instead I just dropped it and she continued on. Then, when she was wrapping up, she made it very clear that all discrimination based on race and gender and identities, and all harassment based on race and gender and identities, etc., was not okay. So then I raised my hand and she called on me and I said, oh, okay, so that makes it pretty clear that white people are included because it said all. Then she immediately said no. White people aren't included. She might not have said that exactly, but she said no. She said it is not talking about white people. This lady is white, by the way. So I told, not that that really matters, but just saying. So I told her that's shocking and absurd, and I refused to look at her again. Afterwards, I filed a formal complaint to my boss, and I told him she said racism against white people is okay in the workplace, and he was like, what? Why would she say that? He was shocked. So I wrote out my story and gave him the paper. Then I finished the workday and wrote out a YouTube video. These people out here, this culture out here, these things have to change. We have to stand up for ourselves when we know what is needed. We have to pay attention to the real news and be aware of rising cultures. I told my mom the story, and she had never heard of a microaggression. I've known about this crap for like 5 years. I've had time to think about things and things to say and mentally prepare to stay calm and be respectful. I won't lie, my heart was racing like crazy as this lady was saying to my face that racism against whites is not what her training was about. Like it doesn't exist or should be tolerated and not even mentioned.